An ordinary civil servant named Elheisen was abducted by an unknown creature on his way to work after jumping off a building. Elheisen. An easy holiday, but why is the landing a dusty alley? Who are the guys in strange costumes on the street? Does this world seem to lack the eye of God? Dingdong. Your system has been launched. Please complete the main task, clean up the Beast Realm Hound, and you will get entangled. 1 shot, the Dark Knights of Mond City shimmered with golden light. 2 shots, the leader of Inazuki Island's devoted family landed gracefully. San Fa, the prison director of Fengdanting, has a kind smile on his face. Batman guarding Gotham, Iron Man soaring in New York, and even the wonders of the universe have all been watched. But what is the way home? Chapter 1. Scholars Gotham Research Tour. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's hard to describe the feeling of jumping off the platform of the teaching academy and falling into an unknown alley. For a while, Elheisen suspected that he had fallen in the head while jumping off the building and was now in a state of illusion. Unfortunately, the cold rain on my body doesn't feel that way. This forced him to cover his sore forehead and forcefully concentrate to sort out his thoughts. If memories were not chaotic, Elheisen should have jumped off the elevator from the sage's office as usual in the first second when the clock pointed to 5 o'clock. Then, using elemental force, he instantaneously displaced and snatched the door of the Order Academy, then jumped off the platform of the Order Academy, landed within 5 seconds, and saw the door of the Enlightenment Woods home. But today, or a moment ago, during his landing, he was devoured by an unknown black hole, and in front of him came this dark alley, with only a muddy and chaotic head recounting his recent encounter. Elheisen felt deeply saddened by the holiday he was destined to spend in peace. He looked around at his surroundings, hoping to find the black hole that had taken him away. The messy garbage looked back at him, and the towering walls with peeling walls mocked his foolish gaze. Looking up to the extreme, he saw a murky black sky from afar, with rolling black clouds pouring down heavy rain that had soaked him all over. The gray-haired man leaned against the wall, trying to cover his waste bag with books with the eaves. A noisy commotion echoed in his ears, and Elheisen followed the sound and turned a corner of the wall, only to be blinded by the bustling scene. The main road in the urban area, which is more than twice as wide as Mond City, is paved in front of us. Crowds of people walk back and forth on each other's backs, and the distant building facades are covered with light curtains, shimmering with dazzling images. Elheisen retreated cautiously, hiding himself in the shadows. Although the attire of the crowd was undoubtedly chaotic, and his fragmented attire was simply normal compared to others, the light curtain filled with strong thunder elements on the facade of the tall building was not a local creation of Tibet. Even Inami on the other side of the ocean did not have the ability to manipulate lightning so finely. All the incomprehensible scenes in front of him were challenging the scholar's cognition. He unconsciously remembered the words of the blonde traveler, perhaps this was the so-called otherworld. The sound of purposeful footsteps came from behind, and Elheisen felt even more pain in his head. The first thing he encountered when he came to the foreign world was a conflict with the indigenous people, which was extremely bad from various perspectives. A guy with a green all-encompassing helmet in the shape of a water droplet approaches the scholar. The helmet has 2 comical holes in the eye area, combined with a triangle used for breathing at the mouth to form a unique expression. He holds a silver knife in his hand, which is now pointing towards Elheisen. Hand over the valuable things. Elheisen raised his hands and thought about a way to escape. Should he just knock him unconscious or knock him unconscious? The gemstone on my shoulder. Throw it to me. Immediately. Otherwise, you'll have to look good. The robber was infuriated by the scholar's unmoved expression, and the sharp weapon in his hand began to wave, but his head kept turning towards the darkness behind him, as if afraid of something. Interesting. Elheisen's curiosity was aroused. He had an intuition that there were even more dangerous creatures lurking in the darkness, but he didn't feel any threat. All the anger was directed towards the robber, and even made his legs tremble and soften. He waited quietly, playing the role of an innocent victim with peace of mind, until the robber stabbed his face with a knife, and the person lurking in the darkness moved. A more swift figure swept past, and the cloak swung into a silhouette. A guy wearing a bat helmet slid out of the darkness, punching the weapon in the criminal's hand and hitting the opponent's throat bone with his elbow, forcing him forward. He then fell over the shoulder and fell over the perpetrator. The bat monster, dressed in black, glanced at the dazed gray-haired man, fired a grappling hook, and leaped away. His hoarse voice fell like a ghost, saying, "Here's a piece of advice. Don't reveal any wealth in Gotham, especially in this neglected alley." Elheisen still hadn't regained his senses, not because he was scared by the skills of the black-clothed monster, but because there was an additional noisy voice in his head. "Welcome to the Super English world. The system is dedicated to serving you. Congratulations on discovering the pivot character, Batman, which has been included in the character catalog. Automatic takeover of main quests. Help this world fight against the Kuroshio. Task rewards. Return ticket and an unparalleled adventure. Wishing you a pleasant journey. Wait. I have the right to refuse unequal contracts that have not been informed of the commission content in advance," Elheisen whispered. The mechanical language made a jumbled creaking sound, causing Elheisen's mind to buzz. After a while, the self-proclaimed system spoke again, with a slightly aggrieved voice. "This world, there are still many books in this world. There is a lot of knowledge that your hometown doesn't have, isn't that enough?" Elheisen raised his eyebrows. He just cheated a little. Why did this guy raise his hand and surrender? It seems that it does not have the function of reading the mind, and even has low intelligence, otherwise it would not easily fall into the trap. Knowledge is indeed an invaluable bargaining chip, but learning them is my own ability, and you cannot use them to negotiate. Since you have the willingness to negotiate, I will not hold you accountable for invading others' minds for now. Answer my question, perhaps there will be a win-win solution. The system disappeared once again, and Elheisen could almost guess its rapid calculation and knew its final result. "Agree, please ask in your mind," the system said. "Firstly, your functions and obligations. World System R3947, Meta Instruction. Maintain the existence of the Super British Universe. The Universal Hub temporarily opens up the function of observing the development of events and replacing some things on this machine. Secondly, why do I need to resist the Kuroshio? There are many outstanding beings in the Super British Universe who, while saving the world, put it in crisis. The damaged world wall cannot defend against the Dark Beast Tide, so we seek the help of experienced other world systems." Dark Beast Tide. Elheisen thought of the wolves of the Beast Realm wandering in the Dead Zone, and couldn't help feeling puzzled in his heart. The creation of the abyss is endless. Do you think I can solve it alone? Negation. You cannot solve the Beast Tide alone, but the pivot characters in this world can impart experience and help them. Do you accept your task? Forgive me for refusing. Elheisen looked like he was rolling his eyes. Why? I agree with your motives for behavior, which does not mean that I am willing to sacrifice an unknown amount of time in this world, just to exchange for the return ticket that should belong to me. Ah. The system fell into a long silence and finally spoke up. Okay, although I don't have experience points to unlock the power yet, I can accumulate energy to help you fulfill a wish before you return. And I guarantee you won't be fatally injured. I can also help you summon other helpers from your hometown. That's it. It seems that you have finally learned the fair trade of humanity. So, prove it now. Elheisen hugged his chest with both hands and a slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Prove. Prove what? The system felt that its CPU was about to burn. It was because it didn't think carefully at the beginning and didn't write the most fair contract, but its goal is to become the highest-rated system in the world. I will definitely do my best for the first host of Tongsheng, but I need it to prove itself. Prove that you have the ability to do everything you promise, at least by preparing the necessary supplies for me to live in this world first. It's clear that you've been interrupting me. The system exclaimed again, but it has learned from its predecessors. Novice tutorials should never be distributed in one go. They should only be answered when the host encounters them or actively asks questions, emphasizing a constant companionship. I've arranged all those things. You just need to complete the beginner task to get them. The system feels aggrieved. Without saying anything, it hides in a corner and whimpers. Elheisen paid attention to the icons that appeared in his sight. One was the taskbar, the other was the guidebook, and there was also a newly appeared accumulation bar. According to the system, once it was full, he could summon a helper from Tivit. However, until he confirmed the safety of this world, he did not intend to let anyone else take risks. All icons and thoughts can be expanded, and there are no so-called beginner tasks in the taskbar, so he confidently waited for the system to explain. The system leader is unwilling to accept the host's doubts and comforts himself. Even if the first host is a petty villain, it must adhere to the system rules. It has a pursuit of unity. To be the best critic. Beginner task. Understand an organization in this world and obtain stable contact information. Task rewards. Safe house with full inventory *1, circulating currency *100,000, ID card *1, job position *1, knowledge manual *1 inch. You are indeed a very reliable system, Elheisen praised generously, ignoring the guy who set off fireworks in his head. He crouched down to check on the robber who had been knocked unconscious by the black-clad monster. Batman. The scholar took out a bag of fancy packaging from the comatose person's pocket, and the sensation of his fingertips twirling it felt like some powder. The bag was written as water droplet, but Elheisen cautiously did not open it and continued to search for the robber's pocket. Hey, hey, hey. Don't bully the people in the world under my jurisdiction. Didn't I give you a task reward? The system rolled back and forth. So reflect on why such a vicious event occurred in the world under your jurisdiction. Elheisen showed no mercy. Also, I have completed the beginner task. The scholar spread out his palm and took out a business card from the robber's pocket. Iceberg's Club front desk phone number. 789666523, take me to the safe house, I need to change my clothes. You cheated. The system emits an indescribable scream. Chapter 2. New Jobs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regardless of how the system scratched its ears and cheeks, Elheisen slept quite soundly last night. The safe house prepared by the world system is indeed beyond reproach, and all kinds of supplies are most in line with Elheisen's lifestyle habits. At first, I suspected that there was also enlightenment wood in this world. Otherwise, how could the furniture be so close to the feeling of using Taiwat's local items? Host, hurry up. It's time to clock in. There are many meetings today, hello. Then you shouldn't schedule your work so tightly. Not all people from other worlds can have the ability to master knowledge of other worlds in a short period of time like me. Elheisen calmly finished his coffee and picked out a set of formal attire from his wardrobe that was recognized in the current world. Is that right? The system called up a memo and took notes with a swish, adding new points. Next time, be the most foolproof ruler. Elheisen picked up his briefcase and instead of constantly moving to his workplace, he chose to take the subway like an ordinary person. The system has assigned his work to Wayne Building, which is not far from the safe house. The specific task is to evaluate Wayne's asset structure, promote the optimization of the family business's production capacity for the past century, ensure that the currently flawed ledger does not let the group collapse, and ideally allow it to focus its investment on new technology research and development and urban renewal. It sounds like some kind of work to turn things around. Elheisen muttered silently and decided to approach this job with his usual attitude. No way. Don't even think about it. Even I can feel your fishing heart. Wayne Group is the fulcrum of this world, absolutely, it cannot be destroyed in a moment, otherwise I won't ask for your help. The system snorted in its mind, I will supervise your work well. Excuse me. Elheisen boarded the subway without a word, expressionless. He chose a seat by the door and looked at the composition of this mechanical object. The information roughly browsed through in the common sense manual is far less than what one experiences firsthand. This type of rail transit has also emerged in Fengdan, but the manufacturing capacity of this world is obviously much stronger than that of Taiwan. Subways are faster than waterway transportation, and the technical cost is also lower. It should be Gotham's main artery for human flow, but it is clearly being dragged down by the declining urban economy, and the environment on the car has become extremely poor. Elheisen sat as straight as possible, with an unknown painted pattern on the back seat, but this was already the cleanest spot among several carriages. Other places had the holiday afterglow of last night's Halloween, specifically referring to the limping drug addicts and vomit everywhere. The scholar's disdain is too obvious, making the system that nominally manages this world feel embarrassed. What is the feeling of exposing one's own child's shortcomings? This is not its fault. It has just taken over this world, how could it be perfect? The system takes notes fiercely amidst a sense of shame and anger, listing 1, 2, 3, and 4 plans for the transformation of Gotham. I wish the host could immediately notify the pivot characters to clean up the world. Wayne Building is a modern office building that combines steel frame structure and Gothic arch structure. Elheisen walked through busy or leisurely employees with a clear purpose, climbing onto an unpopular elevator. His primary task today was to sign an appraisal commission contract with Bruce Wayne, the shareholder of Wayne Group. Mr. Wayne has been living with his butler on the top floor of Wayne Building, the highest point in the city, a top-notch Gothic mansion. This chairman, who has not taken the elevator downstairs for several years, is undoubtedly the king on Gotham Ming's face. Even in the increasingly declining group, he has become the top billionaire on Gotham City's list with his withered flesh and blood. Since the death of Thomas and his wife in a shooting, Wayne has never appeared in front of the media or the public again. The company has always been managed by Alfred, a trusted confidant of Thomas and the steward of the Wayne family. Those who have some leisure time will always harbor malicious speculations that this young Wayne has actually been imprisoned by the butler, and the Wayne Group is in name only. Perhaps it will soon be renamed the Pennyworth Group. Obviously, it's a rumor. But not entirely. Elheisen maintained his expressionless expression, actually piqued by the scene before him. Under the magnificent and exquisite arch, the old man with white hair sat at a black marble six-sided table, with a young man wearing sunglasses beside him looking into the distance. Alfred put away the password paper on the table, so these little hobbies of his own master at night don't have to be put on the table. The old man, leaning on a cane, came to shake hands with Elheisen and said, "Welcome, Mr. Elheisen Muroboden. You are very punctual and I hope our cooperation goes smoothly." The scholar frowned and shook hands with Alfred with a stiff face. He never thought of using the school he graduated from to call himself his surname. The system's voice was subtle, and it murmured softly, I didn't expect that some people in your area don't have surnames, so I just casually filled in one. You must know this is calling you." Elheisen resisted the urge to immediately turn his face and say hello to the two gentlemen present. "Good afternoon, Mr. Wayne and Mr. Pennyworth." He took out a stack of paper from his briefcase and said, "I have drafted the contract. The authority to access the financial statements of the Wayne Group and the regulations for visiting and investigating the work of various departments are all included in it. Please take a look." The situation went smoothly, and Elheisen's figure quickly disappeared into the elevator door. Bruce came to his senses from a state of emptiness, still reminiscing about the details of last night's mayor's murder case. The riddle left by the killer, lies never cease, the mayor's missing thumb, the youngest son who lost his father on Halloween. Try other solutions and ignore the letters without keys. Chapter 3. Collaborators. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Elheisen took the elevator to descend from the top floor to the basement of Wayne Building. This is the location of the Technology Research and Development Department. According to the current president of the group, the department has a large number of equipment and high power consumption. In order to avoid noise affecting the normal work of other departments, the entire underground floor of the building has been designated as the work site of the Research and Development Department. Pushy. Do they really say that? There are so many devices. Fox received the young man who had obviously not adapted to the official tone of the board of directors. Look around here, except for Thomas's experimental products during his lifetime, there is nothing else, not even a tea room for us to brew a cup of tea. The minister, with obvious wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, didn't hesitate to spend his time shuttling through many white cloth-covered test objects with Elheisen. Of course, it's correct not to have a pantry, after all, people here have to go upstairs and share a restroom with tourists. This is just a garage. It's just because I'm here, they're here, so they're called the Technology Research and Development Department. Mr. Fox, as far as I know, you were a key member of Chairman Thomas during his lifetime. After the tragedy, was your Technology Research and Development Department targeted? Elheisen flipped through all the paper documents of the Research and Development Department, which recorded the structural construction and application prospects of many experimental products. However, after Thomas's death, all research and development were confined to writing, and no more money flowed here. Regarding. No, sir, the board of directors only chose projects that could recover funds faster, those that were not morally sound but had economic value, such as selling lethal weapons or war materials like Stark Group. Fox lifted the white cloth and patted his old partner who had been with him for years. You should know that the death of Wayne and his wife scared the shareholders' hearts. Even the English gentleman on the rooftop, no matter how hard he tried to maintain stability, could not resist people's desire to protect himself and money. Elheisen recorded in silence, then closed his notebook and said goodbye to Fox. Thank you for your generosity. I will truthfully inform Mr. Wayne. Goodbye, sir. Perhaps both I and they can look forward to seeing the day again. Fox keenly sensed the change and smiled as he bid farewell to Elheisen. Also, you can try Ho's spicy hot dog, which is the only reason I won't quit after being sent to the underground garage. Divider line, compared to Sumi spices, the spicy sauce in this world is almost unbearable sweet. Elheisen sat on a bench in the park, frowning as he finished a whole serving of hot dogs, determined not to listen to anyone's advice on dinner again next time. He looked up at the towering Wayne building in front of him, filled with so many petty creatures that even he couldn't guarantee to clean it up without the owner's care. Troubled work. Hi, sir. A call came from not far away. May I ask if you can take some time to complete an interview? This is a social practice activity at school, and I really need your help. The boy in school uniform walked up with a camera, his eyes shining brightly as he looked at Elheisen. Hello, Mr. Little Drake. Elheisen remained unmoved as he gazed at the Wayne building. If you were to replace your father, the shareholder of Drake, to inquire about my work situation, I regret to inform you that I am currently only employed by Mr. Wayne and will only be responsible to him until the contract expires. The young man widened his eyes and sat down next to Elheisen, saying, How do you know? No, you're checking Wayne Group's financial reports. The family situation of the senior shareholders must have been investigated. Humph, but I'm not a speculator here to inquire about the transfer of assets. If you have read today's morning newspaper, you should have seen the news of primary and secondary school students collectively visiting the Gotham City Museum. Elheisen looked meaningfully at Tim's school uniform. Oh, damn it. Tim covered the school emblem and let go of it, feeling self-deprecating. Okay, sir, I did underestimate you. But please believe me, I have a legitimate reason to skip class. If your legitimate reason is to disturb others' rest time, I think I have to meet with Drake's shareholders in advance. No, don't tell my father. Tim immediately sat down on the bench, explaining his motives in detail. I'm investigating something, tracking it for a long time, about Mr. Wayne. But he hasn't appeared in front of anyone for many years, he's just a hermit. You're the only person I've met with Bruce Wayne recently, and I really need your help. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose the privacy of my employer, let alone that we are only acquaintances. Elheisen threw the packaging bag of the hot dog into the trash can and stood up to leave. However, the scholar recalled the young man with black hair beneath the dome, despite his resolute expression, full of melancholy. So he slowly added, he should be doing a difficult job. Mr. Little Drake seemed to have dug out enough satisfaction from such a few words and left with a camera on his back in excitement. Elheisen slowly walked towards the subway station, but it was not in the direction of the safe house. Oh, 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 oh. The system let out a meaningless strange cry in its mind, whistling and exploding fireworks. Supporting characters. All supporting characters. The guidebook has opened a large area. Host. I knew I didn't choose the wrong person. Quiet. Elheisen pressed his head, and the strange sound from the system almost caused him to fall. Sorry, the system continued to giggle foolishly. Let's go back and celebrate. There was such a huge progress on the first day. We must be able to defeat the Kuroshio soon. Oh, why did you go the wrong way? Turn back and let me show you the way. Let's go. Optimism is one of the few virtues of fools, and it's hard to see where your conclusions come from. Elheisen didn't want to compromise with this borderless and noisy guy, and resolutely moved forward according to his own will. Ah. The system was sluggish and huddled in the corner, groaning. Elheisen let out a silent sigh, thinking about the dark future he would work with. He spoke slowly, since pivot figures are so important to this world, we should visit them in a timely manner. The system became fragmented, and I couldn't help but wonder, what did you find again? The scholar pulled out the business card found in the robber's pocket and placed it together with the bag of water droplets, prohibited items that had already been identified for their effectiveness through a system diagram. It is obvious that the term fulcrum figure does not have a stance, so why not look for accomplices who are more likely to achieve cooperation? Chapter 4. Scholars, Hounds, and Teenagers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gotham City is old and drooping, exuding a decadent and lifeless aura from top to bottom. But as night falls, the city suddenly erupts with terrifying vitality, like drug addicts scattered throughout it, squeezing out the last glimmer of vitality under the action of injections and powders, desperately singing loudly before its demise. Haisen walked into the Iceberg Club and sat in front of the bar to adjust the earphones. The volume here was far more annoying than he expected. The sound shook with his heart, making people almost nauseous. The waiters with water drops came and went, constantly injecting craziness into Gotham. He thought out of place. For Gotham people, perhaps every day here is Halloween. Amidst the thunderous music, gunshots suddenly mixed in. Elheisen followed the sound and noticed that the bat monster he met last night also appeared here, but obviously not for a drink. No drinker would be attacked with weapons by bodyguards. The scholar pondered for a moment and recalled a report he had just seen. The mayor who was murdered on Halloween has been revealed to have a private photo, and the background of the photo seems to be the Iceberg Club. Are the detectives I've recently met a bit excessive? Elheisen thought to himself, summoning a lens of elemental condensation and shooting down a shotgun in the bodyguard's hand, receiving a stern glance from Batman. Probably treating elemental lenses as glass fragments and confirming enemies and friends. The scholar shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he had no ill intentions. The chaos quickly subsided, and the Penguin, who was guarding the Iceberg Club, waved off his subordinates and led Batman into the glass room on the top floor, which was his office. Elheisen followed silently, and the thugs were knocked down by Batman, leaving no one to stop the unwelcome guest for the time being. How do I know which waiter the mayor is related to, and someone even filmed him? I'm just a spectator, busy with some small business. The Penguin Man shouted in a rough voice, fiercely responding to Batman's questioning. If you're really a defender of justice, why don't you investigate the black dogs that have been wandering around Gotham recently? Who knows what new viruses they carry? People who get bitten are either dead or injured. Alheisen hid in the shadows, watching Batman chase a waiter away, probably discovering some new clues. He walked out of the corner, facing a black barrel. "Alright, little tail, let's talk and see what you can give me," the Penguin Man shouted, pointing a gun at Alheisen's head, clearly angry at the troublemakers who were causing trouble one after another tonight. "Don't be nervous, Mr. Coppert." Elheisen sat down on the sofa, hands spread out, indicating that he had no weapons. "I'm just interested in the black dog you're talking about. My hometown has suffered losses from them, maybe I can help you clarify." The Penguin Man stretched out his words and looked up and down at Elheisen, trying to find the man's flaws. "What do you want?" "A friendship." Elheisen slowly took out a droplet from his pocket and the one he had taken from the robber's hand. "Or, this." The Penguin lowered his gun and laughed heartily, waving to his subordinates outside the door, saying, "Yes, that's right, you have such good taste. It has always been our best-selling product. If you can help us solve those small biological problems, I guarantee you can get a sales outlet from me. Now, let Kenzie take you over, this is really a burning matter. You know how popular the water droplets are, we're all about to cut off supplies because of those damn dogs. Of course, it's really making a big profit for us when it's tight." The Penguin chuckled and asked Alheisen to come out, then whispered in the thug's ear. "Take him to the dog's place, but don't let him come back alive. I feel like the Beast Realm Hound." The system whispered softly, trembling with fear as the upcoming battle approached, yet not forgetting to complain. "Why did you just listen to him and make them blindfold? That Penguin person is uneasy at first glance. You have guaranteed my personal safety, and I believe your promise is trustworthy." Alheisen sat quietly in the back seat of the car, his eyes covered in black cloth, and could only feel the shaking of the car body. There were thugs sitting on each side, and he could feel the cold and hard muzzle pointing at himself. "For merchants, we won't let prey that hasn't fully exploited all its value die. The real danger should be after we deal with those dogs." "Then you promise him?" The system started chattering in its mind again, "You can't see, but I know they've stuffed something in the trunk. White phosphorus bombs. They didn't even want you to go back alive. I thought your purpose in coming to this world was to solve the Kuroshio. Now is the time to screen collaborators, and Mr. Coppert has lost his qualification due to his breach of contract," the scholar responded casually. The car came to a stop, and Elheisen was pointed at by a gun, standing in a damp place. "Gotham, it's raining again." The thug took off the mask from his head and handed him a small caliber pistol, which seemed to be useless and unable to commit suicide satisfactorily. They opened the layers of iron locks on the factory gate in front of them, instructing Elheisen to enter, but before he actually walked inside, they pulled out a young man from the corner and threw him next to Elheisen. "Hey! It's not like this." The boy let out a low drink from his throat, like a betrayed beast. "I'm looking at the door. If the dog runs out, I'll notify you." We agreed. "Stop talking nonsense." The thugs fired a few shots at the two people's feet, threatening them to enter the factory, and then immediately blocked the gate. The matter is troublesome. The two people who were forced to stare big and small thought at the same time. The young man wearing a hood took the lead and pulled out the pry bar behind him. He looked around at other possible exits and didn't forget to greet Alheisen standing on the side, saying, "No matter how unlucky you have offended the penguins, you have implicated me. It's best to cooperate. Maybe we can escape before those big dogs discover us. Forgive me for being blunt, even without me, they wouldn't have let you go." Alheisen pointed to the equipment in the factory that extracts prohibited items and understood why the penguins were untrustworthy. "This should be the processing factory that produces water droplets. They won't let anyone know the location here, and your transaction with them is already a piece of waste paper. At least I got the money. The children in Crime Alley can survive the winter safely this year. What about you? You don't even understand the danger of those black dogs, and you fell into a pit blinded by greed. The young man sneered in a muffled voice, trying to pry open the window that was nailed to the wooden board. The struggle of words cannot solve the current predicament. Elheisen coldly watched the boy's futility and turned to examine the ceiling eroded by the energy of the abyss. This height cannot be reached by the mirror flash. A roar came from not far away, and two Beast Realm Hounds emerged from the pitch-black vortex and swiftly teleported to the scholar's side. Hey! Don't be fooled. The child wearing a hood waved a crowbar and rushed towards the black dog's claws, trying to keep them away. Tisk! Elheisen grabbed the boy's collar and quickly dodged him. Don't let them attack you. The wound won't heal. Do you want to bleed to death? What do you say? Ignoring the person's vague mockery, the child tensed his nerves and stared at the two Beast Realm Hounds. Elheisen remained silent and adjusted his position with the boy, leading the black dog to the damaged ceiling. Raindrops fell and a layer of water accumulated on the ground. The eye of God in the pocket shone brightly, and several grass element lenses formed in the factory, refracting many beams of light and trapping the hunting dogs inside. What? Ghosts. The young man stared at the scene, with a green curtain covering everything around him, casting a gloomy light. It is difficult not to suspect that one is dreaming. Grass elements absorb the water stains on the ground, forming a string of grassland nuclei. The hunting dog is severely injured by the elemental force and lies on the ground, howling with no possibility of teleportation again. Don't move around, it will explode later. I'll take you out, said Elheisen, holding down the child's struggle. The white phosphorus bomb landed from above, instantly igniting all grassland nuclei, and the impact collapsed the walls, burying everything inside the factory. How could it explode? The thugs outside the door were whispering and hesitating due to this strange phenomenon. What a fool! Kensi shouted sternly, this place is exploding, the police will come soon. Hurry up and run. Several black cars roared as they retreated from the ruins of the factory. In the abandoned building not far away, Elheisen leaned against the wall, suppressing the blood oozing from his waist and abdomen. The grassland nucleus was suddenly detonated, and there was no time to completely avoid it. Fortunately, the plan to teleport and escape did not go wrong. The system and the boy's call were in chaos, and Elheisen had to speak out to signal that he was okay. Hurry up, the police will be here soon, this is not a place to stay. That's right. The young man sorted out his crooked mask, picked up the crowbar, and quickly ran away. Before his figure disappeared into the darkness, he turned back and said to Elheisen, thank you for saving me. If you encounter any trouble, come to Crime Alley to find me. Jason and his friends are always at your service. Chapter 5. Stubborn players will not do missions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 6. Memorial Service. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Everything is not going smoothly. Elheisen thought to himself lying on the ground. Although scholars speculated that today's morning would not go smoothly the night before departure, it was unexpected for the system to be hit by a car shortly after leaving. The system has resolutely fulfilled its promise to ensure the personal safety of Elheisen. That is to say, non-fatal injuries will not interfere. So when it examined the scholar's physical condition, it was found that there was only a slight concussion and multiple abrasions, and the most serious wound was just a cracked waist and abdomen. The night before yesterday, where he was injured by the grassland nucleus explosion, the system couldn't help but laugh uncontrollably. When the perpetrator walked out of the car and stood next to Elheisen, frantically calling for an ambulance, the system laughed even louder. Because this car owner is Bruce Wayne. Considering that today's memorial service was mandatory for Wayne Group to participate, I think it should be considered a work-related injury, said Elheisen, who fell to the ground in despair. Yes, Mr. Sherluo Bowden, I will pay you enough compensation. Bruce crouched down, trying to examine the poor man's bleeding abdomen. After a while, his shirt was already soaked and there was no sign of stopping the bleeding. Please call me Elheisen. The gray-haired man pulled up his loose coat to cover his shirt, politely rejecting Mr. Wayne's kindness. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain where the burning wound in his abdomen came from. Bruce seemed hesitant to speak. After all, no normal person would discuss addressing issues with his boss in a bloody state. However, he mercifully restrained himself and decided to schedule a complete brain examination for his employees. It must be the cause of the concussion. Mr. Wayne has one of the few kind-hearted people in Gotham City. He assisted medical staff in lifting Elheisen onto a stretcher, driving the dazzling Rolls-Royce all the way to the hospital, and personally accompanied the victims for examination. It wasn't until the doctor wrapped up the injured person in the unfortunate car accident that Bruce remembered the memorial service. Mr. Elheisen, please forgive my recklessness. This is the contact information of Alfred Wayne, the butler. I will entrust him to discuss the specific compensation with you. Bruce handed Elheisen a business card and hurriedly prepared to leave. Wait a moment, Mr. Wayne. Elheisen called Bruce, do you still plan to go to the memorial service? Yes, the incident of the mayor being murdered is a hot topic, and I should go and express my grief as a citizen of Gotham. The perpetrator of the serial murder may return to the crime scene or go to the memorial service to observe people's emotions. Bruce didn't mention the second half. These private jobs should not be exposed in front of outsiders. Elheisen remained silent, feeling that he should be able to take leave. No one would force an injured person to go to the church to express their grief, just in time to avoid the surging undercurrent below. Who knew what trouble the riddle person would cause? So. Elheisen spoke, looking at Bruce who was staring at him. This kind gentleman patiently waits for his words. As he said, he and many citizens of Gotham will go to the memorial service, and the riddle man obviously will not stop the operation due to whether the innocent person is injured or not. The system is chattering in its mind, unwilling to see the world under its jurisdiction in turmoil, and unwilling to make things difficult for the already injured Elheisen, so it keeps nagging in the minds of scholars, trying to divert the topic. So. Mr. Wayne may need a driver, said Elheisen. Stay, host. The system was tearful, and the voice pulled out a gentle long tone. Shut up. Or help me erase Wayne's memory. He must feel like I'm out of consciousness now and want the doctor to examine me again. Elheisen frowned, trying not to look at Wayne's strange eyes, praying that this matter would be forgotten soon. Changing memory is impossible, and not to mention the limited energy, the system is still the one with principles. So Bruce spoke with a subtle expression, maybe you should stay here and rest. Thank you for your concern. I'm doing well. But your report shows. Well, I really believe that letting a person with a concussion drive on the road is disrespectful to their own and others' lives. The matter was finally settled, and Mr. Wayne drove to the memorial service. Elheisen was once again taken by enthusiastic medical staff for examination. Amidst the uncontrollable laughter of the system, the scholar refused the remaining inspection items, frowned, and boarded the taxi, speeding towards the church. When Elheisen arrived at the memorial service, many people had already dispersed at the entrance, but the lower-class residents who questioned the officials' motives and fanatics who supported the riddles were still crowded in front of the fence. The police struggled to maintain order, and the screams of external police officers mixed with the chants of the internal church. Scholars couldn't help but shudder, and Gotham could always see the sharpest and softest side of human nature. He turned on the invisibility function, lowered his presence, and infiltrated the church. The ceremony had already begun, and people remained silent and could only barely see Wayne being blocked in the corner by the new mayoral candidate, saying something. Elheisen squinted his eyes and read their lips, as the mayoral candidate seemed to be persuading Wayne to participate in social business and support the revival of Gotham's industry. So he turned his eyes and stopped paying attention to these affairs, starting to look at the others around him. The chaotic sound outside suddenly intensified, as an off-road vehicle smashed the carved wooden door of the church, flattening the obstacles and rushing towards the front choir. People became noisy and retreated towards the wall. Elheisen noticed that Wayne had saved the mayor's orphan, and the two of them narrowly avoided the front of the off-road vehicle. He couldn't help but feel surprised that the richest man was surprisingly agile. The police quickly evacuated the crowd, and Elheisen walked through the crowd. Looking up, he saw a person standing still in the empty corridor on the second floor, which was very eye-catching among the gradually sparse onlookers. Without hesitation, Elheisen dodged and climbed up the pillar, catching up with the suspect who was about to retreat. He was a guy with thick glasses, his face hidden in a mask, and his body wrapped in a large green assault suit. He was startled by the sudden appearance of a stranger, screamed and turned to escape, but was pinned to the ground by Elheisen and couldn't move. He purred a strange laugh in his throat, twisted his head and tried to look at Elheisen, asking, "You're trying to find me? When I got lost, you struggled to get me. What am I? What?" The system was puzzled. Time. Elheisen frowned, also not understanding the reason this guy was asking, a riddle. Ha. That's right. The guy with glasses suddenly knocked his head on the ground, screaming hysterically in his throat, staring at Elheisen with slanted eyes, as if trying to remember his face. The scholar suddenly thought of something and turned to look at the evacuated crowd downstairs. Wayne was nowhere to be seen, which was a good thing. The police gradually surrounded the off-road vehicle stuck on the podium and ordered the driver in the cab to come down. The man with explosives strapped to his body trembled as he opened the car door, his fingers and lips wrapped in tape, and a bright red countdown on his neck. Stop. Stop. The nearest police officer was horrified and immediately radioed for support. Martinez called headquarters, the suspect has a time bomb on him. Request support. The man shouted anxiously. Under his coat was a letter written in indistinguishable characters. To Batman, the green-clothed man pressed to the ground suddenly erupted, with a cold light in his hand, and a dagger stabbed at Elheisen's head. Scholars have to loosen their grip and avoid sudden attacks. Elheisen let out a muffled groan as his wound in the waist and abdomen was kicked by the enemy, causing it to burst and bleed again. Hey! Is everything okay? The system exclaimed in its mind. That guy ran away. Leave him alone for now, go down and save someone. Chapter 7. We need to talk. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The crowd participating in the memorial service has been evacuated, and the police officers handling the emergency also immediately retreated after discovering the bomb, allowing Elheisen to walk unobstructed to the hostages to investigate. The countdown flickered, and there was plenty of time for now. Elheisen used his invisibility function to observe around the victim, but unfortunately found that the bomb was welded together by an iron bar. He did not activate his backpack function, and the tools he brought from the safe house were all lightweight and not enough to damage the iron bar. Just as Elheisen was about to try to open the panel and check the wiring, the sound of the wheels spinning came from behind, which was the police's remote bomb disposal robot. Can the invisibility function evade the survey of electronic instruments? Elheisen retreated into the shadows. The sun had already set, and the dim church was enough for him to hide. Sure. The sound of the system sounded a bit smug. The fundamental mechanism of invisibility is to reduce the sense of presence and facilitate the smooth integration of life into the environment. You are just a wall or a tile of a church, and of course, the camera cannot capture you. But can anyone discover it? Elheisen raised his eyebrows and remembered the passengers who almost sat on him on the subway, as well as the riddle man who was quickly counterattacked after being knocked down by him. Being able to be detected by the vital body is a necessary safety mechanism, and if the user does not actively attack or be attacked, this function is foolproof, the system explained in a low voice. Elheisen did not respond because the system was already functioning as expected. He walked out of the shadow and surrounded the hostages with the robot to study the time bomb. Before the machine could contact any police officer, there was another sound of footsteps coming from the empty church. Elheisen turned around and was not surprised to find that it was Batman. The robot emitted a noise of electric current, and the roar of the detective came out from it. It was obvious that the legend of Gotham was seen through the camera. "Kid. Don't meddle in your own business. Wear your costume and go somewhere else." Batman ignored and helped the hostages pull off the tape that sealed their faces, but did not release his bound fingers. "Help me. It's the Riddle Man. He kidnapped me. These bombs, and the out-of-control car. It's all his fault. This gentleman has lost his sanity, constantly reaching out to grab Batman or the robot. Fortunately, the tape on his hand is still wrapped, stopping his crazy behavior." Batman held onto his shoulder, gesturing for him to calm down, and reached out to tear off the letter that the Riddler had attached to the man's chest. Telephone. The adhesive tape used by the hostages to tie their palms lit up from the cracks, and a chilling bell rang. It was only then that a few people saw a mobile phone tied inside. The man was already intimidated by fear, trembling and raising his arm, hoping that Batman could save him. In this hesitant moment, the countdown of the bombs suddenly became faster, urging a few people to answer the phone like a desperate urge. "No. Help me." The hostage shook his palm and pleaded with tears on his face. But just as Batman was about to press the answer button, the phone was hung up by the other hand. Bruce suddenly looked up, and Elheisen saw a ghost standing beside him. "You. What did you do?" The hostage's emotions were completely shattered. He couldn't see who hung up the phone, and the unknown fear was enough to destroy a person's tense spirit. His limbs danced wildly, shouting at the top of his lungs, flipping over the clutter around him. The police robot was kicked away, the camera hit the ground, the light flashed, and there was no more movement. Batman restrained the crazy man, opened the bomb panel, and the chaotic wiring mixed together, which was not a problem that could be solved in more than 10 seconds. And that hand, which had no idea when it appeared here, shone green in the palm, covering the neck of the hostage. Several vines spread out and penetrated through the gap between the flesh and the iron bar, squeezing into any possible gap in the bomb. It grew like a seed breaking through the ground, breaking open the iron bar that bound the man and destroying the countdown of death. Batman immediately threw the dropped bomb out of the window. Before it could fly out, the waves of the explosion had already rushed in all directions. Bruce rushed forward, protecting the hostages and Elheisen with his cloak and back. When he heard the buzzing in his ear and retreated, he suddenly reached out and grabbed the scholar's collar, questioning in a hoarse voice, "What did you do?" Elheisen furrowed his brows, not that he had any dissatisfaction with the bat, but that he was also implicated in the wound, and the blood loss made him feel dizzy. "Monsters. Monsters. Both of you. Monsters." The hostage screamed, covering his head in hysteria, his eyes completely confused, clearly losing the possibility of normal communication. Batman let go of Elheisen, grabbed the man who was dodging on the ground, and gave him a shot to calm him down, causing him to temporarily fall into a coma. "Batman." Haisen spoke, his gaze fixed on the flickering lights outside the church, as police and the media were about to charge in. Gotham Legend stared firmly at the gray-haired man with a plain expression and spoke word by word. "We need to talk about it." Chapter 8. Allies. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 9. Entering Fate. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When the news reported that Wayne's mansion was hit by a bomb, Haisen was cutting bread. The scholar stopped his movements and his mind was a bit confused. Then he clicked on the Wayne Enterprise employee group and confirmed that the holiday notice had been issued, and there was no need to go to the building to clock in today. So he sat comfortably on the sofa, holding the plate and reading the morning news. Mr. Pennyworth, whose white hair had been partially burned by flames, was being interviewed on camera. He looked a bit disheveled and not very energetic, as if he had endured a terrible night. It was a bomb package mailed by a Riddle man, which destroyed half of the ceiling of the mansion. Fortunately, no one was injured. His target is Mr. Wayne, and to prevent such incidents from happening again, I cannot inform the media of his location. If there are any issues, please let me convey them on my behalf. The journalist clearly did not have Mr. Butler's calm and robust heart, and the media was thrilled by the sudden big news. This is Wayne, who has been avoiding the world for years. If you appear again, you will be involved in the hottest serial murder case. And he was also exposed to a shocking scandal. The reporter's voice trembled slightly as he lost his composure when asked a question about the video just released by the Riddle man, as he had the pinnacle of his career passion within reach. What do you think of the video? He accused the Wayne couple of deceiving the world and stealing their names. You have been Wayne's butler for many years, and how many details do you know about the Wayne couple buying murder? What is buying murder? Elheisen frowned and opened his phone to find that the latest video of the Riddle man was on the trending list, revealing Martha Wayne's family history of mental illness. Thomas Wayne, in order to cover up the scandal, instructed the gang leader Falcone to kill the journalist who knew about it. Why did the Riddle man keep an eye on Wayne again? Scholars are contemplating the connection between business giants and the dark side of politics, gradually shifting their gaze to the casually laid out corporate documents on the desktop. No. The butler's face became extremely ugly as he restrained his anger and exerted all his strength not to punch the reporter who was talking nonsense in front of him. The Wayne couple devoted their entire lives to Gotham and are recognized as excellent citizens. Even though they have been plagued by unscrupulous media, they have never done anything illegal. The reporter was relentless, like a hyena smelling blood, biting the words of the interviewee and saying, "You admit that a journalist once discovered a family scandal. Just like you admit he's an unscrupulous media, yes, there is indeed such a paparazzi." Alfred's voice was calm, and he decided to sound the horn of attack, making the muddy water more turbulent. And the troubles of the Wayne couple were detected by Falcone, who attempted to blackmail Mr. Thomas, who was well known in politics at the time, by murdering a paparazzi journalist. Falcone created a trap, hoping to make the Wayne couple his representatives, but Mr. Thomas refused him and swore to report his actions. However, before the two sides truly began to fight, the gunshots in Crime Alley put everything to silence. The journalist's breath was suppressed in his throat, and he trembled as he asked in a very light and delicate voice, "Are you going to war with Mr. Falcone?" Falcone betrayed the Wayne couple who saw him as a friend, and I will never, Alfred smiled without feeling afraid. The elderly man with a straight back added, "This is also Mr. Wayne's intention. I am Wayne's butler and will not go against his master's wishes." The interview ends with a shot of the ceiling of Wayne's mansion being bombed out. But this reputation war has just begun, and the Wayne family has once again returned to the forefront of the storm. Elheisen put the empty plate into the sink and began to ponder aimlessly. Wayne and Falcone, as well as Gotham and the Dark, are the strongest forces. Their collision is destined to trigger a continuous bloodbath, with scattered sparks that can affect the fate of many families. The outcome can only be chosen from one of them, and the city may once again establish rules and order, or completely fall into an endless darkness. But this has nothing to do with me. The scholar repeated in his mind. This has nothing to do with me. He is an outsider thrown into this world, with the only goal of returning to his rightful hometown. The events he has experienced are insignificant processes that only require careful consideration, proving his unique identity to all parties, and obtaining maximum help in resisting the Kuroshio. His position and identity are by no means fixed, and the conflicts in this world have nothing to do with him. The phone shook and fell into the pool, disrupting the flow of thought. Elheisen hurriedly caught the meeting invitation from his boss, and Mr. Wayne invited him to meet in the office. Even in the face of a terrorist attack, you have to go to work. You are truly a capitalist. Elheisen grabbed a cloth and wiped his hands, carrying his coat towards the entrance. Just before closing the door, he saw various daily necessities added to the house, rows of purchased bookshelves, unopened books, and delicious ingredients. He has already made choices based on his own preferences, gradually shaping his life here. So, is this widely spread event really unrelated to him? Elheisen sighed and decided to start by correcting the financial statements of Wayne Group, which were full of errors and omissions. Chapter 10. Wayne's Work. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before this land became independent and established, the Wayne family had already crossed the sea and rooted themselves in Gotham. If anyone dug deep into the cornerstone of the city, they would find that every piece was engraved with Wayne's name. At first, the Wayne people only relied on a unique deep-water port here to do some fur business, selling the captured animal skins and bird feathers from the inland to various European countries on the other side of the ocean. But the fashion trend of the Europa aristocracy is as unpredictable as the ocean, as they find that precious fur that fluctuates on the sea is not always sold at high prices as they please. Instead, it is the increasingly large port cities that provide a hungry market for themselves. So, luxury materials gradually disappeared from the Wayne family's ocean-going ships. Grain, steel, fuel. All the materials that could nourish the city were brought back by Wayne from all over the world, continuously feeding this small human gathering place. Gradually, the Wayne family forgot about the roaring ocean, and each generation of family members regarded Gotham as a resting place for their souls. They integrated with the city they created, and even after hundreds of years of wind and rain, they always held on to this harbor, becoming a symbol of the city in the hearts of millions of Gotham people. Wayne Tower was once the tallest building in the Gotham financial district. Its owner is connected to the city's bloodline, and in the declining Gotham era, it inevitably has to bow down to other emerging enterprises. However, this does not mean that Wayne Tower has outdated facilities and incomplete functions. At least when it was completed decades ago, the safety issues of the group's senior management were already considered. Bruce sat in the chair feeling slightly uncomfortable. This is the high-backed cowhide chair exclusively belonging to the chairman's office of Wayne Building. It is absolutely exquisitely crafted and of excellent quality. The wooden armrests are also exquisitely carved with leaves that run in different directions. However, thanks to its owner's decades of absence, it and the office it is located in are shrouded in a subtle desolation. Even though only one elevator is needed between here and the top-floor residential building, theoretically the shortest commuting distance in Gotham City, Mr. Wayne has never bothered here. If it weren't for the diligent cleaning staff, the chairman would probably have had to wait for his employees in the dust. Elheisen hesitated when he knocked on the door. The floor of the building was too empty, which made him question whether there was really someone in the office. "Please come in." Bruce relaxed his body and felt relieved that another living person had finally appeared. "Mr. Wayne," Elheisen nodded politely and placed a stack of documents on the table, which was the result of his recent work. "Although as a subordinate, I do not have the right to interfere in my superior's personal affairs, I still hope that you can issue timely notices when making decisions that affect the future direction of the entire enterprise, rather than letting us ordinary employees who are busy earning living expenses hastily learn from the morning news." Bruce's expression was bewildered, and the chairman clearly had no concept of his declaration of war. The young man with blue eyes pondered his words, trying to calm his subordinate's irritability. "Falcone is just the leader of the Gotham gang, he will not cause direct losses to the Wayne Group. But the anger of employees losing their vacation will not disappear in the slightest due to the words of the culprit. So indirect losses are not within your consideration range." Elheisen, with a wooden face, mourned for the holidays he had already lost today and the holidays he would lose in the future. He even evaded hospital treatment for Wayne in front of him yesterday, and the result became a sign of eternal peace. If you follow the second half of the morning news, you will find that the stock exchange has begun to publicly sell Wayne Group stocks. If you don't want investors to withdraw their funds, which will cause the company's cash flow to break, at least you should inform your investment advisor, who is myself, before taking action. This is exactly the crisis I need. Bruce's gaze was resolute. Wayne Group does not need shareholders advocating for expanding weapons sales. Elheisen was slightly surprised. He did not expect Wayne to have such thoughts. He originally thought Wayne had been stunned by the explosion, forgetting that the culprit was the Riddler rather than Falcone, and impulsively made the wrong decision to provoke the gang. Respect your will. Elheisen quickly accepted the status quo, and he did not agree with the external evaluation of Wayne's mediocrity and idleness. Therefore, scholars are temporarily willing to trust this gentleman who is working hard in the dark. Elheisen pushed the document to Bruce and lowered his eyes, saying, "Since you are very clear about your goals, I believe you also have corresponding measures to deal with them. However, due to personal error correction habits, I must tell you that the financial situation of the group is not optimistic. Half of the finance department is skilled at falsifying accounts, and no matter how you plan to drive other shareholders out of the board, cash flow disruption is the most urgent crisis at present." The scholar sighed and then remembered the commotion of the stock exchange in the news, slowly adding, "If we can't do it, maybe it's not anyone else who got kicked out of the board. It's a good joke that Wayne Group doesn't have Wayne." Bruce ignored this seemingly insincere mockery and was focused on flipping through the document, which contained an oversight in the group's financial statements discovered by Elheisen. Among all the funds with unknown whereabouts, the largest proportion was the revitalization fund left by Thomas. Bruce stared at the line of words, his mind buzzing, as if he had returned to the never-ending night of Mercedes-Benz. After Elheisen left the church, Batman immediately logged into the Riddleman's website. He also did not know the informant in the case of destroying the poison nest, and could only provide his own guessed answer. The answer that lacked confidence was obviously not what the Riddleman had been waiting for, but the criminal was very interested in the guessing game and gave Batman new clues. Wayne's lies, father's debt and son's repayment. This puzzle is too simple, and the Bat feels absurd that Bruce is the answer to it. "No one will be injured this time," Batman muttered in his heart, almost relieved. The target of the riddle is himself, and no one else will be injured. But he suddenly realized that no one knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman. The Bat immediately called Alfred to leave Wayne's house, and almost as soon as Alfred left the house, the explosion lifted the ceiling of the mansion. I can't remember the miscellaneous events that followed, but the Riddleman's sarcastic laughter at the revitalization fund was very harsh, and Bruce couldn't help but pay attention to the truth of the event. The memory of the Wayne couple in this world is only left with those good reputations, and as another legacy for them, Bruce must take on the responsibility of revealing the truth. So he entrusted Afyu to refute the Riddleman's false accusations in front of the media, while he waited here for the financial analysis of Elheisen. Elheisen watched quietly as Bruce flipped through the document to the end. Seeing him speechless for a while, he quickly packed his things and stood up to bid farewell. He is not idle enough to accompany others to calm his emotions. "Wait a minute." Bruce spoke dryly and called out to Elheisen, "Sheriff Gordon is waiting for you on the first floor." The scholar frowned and quickly felt relieved. "I am the only outsider who has recently entered Wayne's house, and after the explosion, of course, I will be called to take notes. Also, I have other things to entrust to you." Bruce completely calmed down and stared at Elheisen, speaking word by word.